How's the royal family? I pray that everyone is doing well. Well, my royal family, I have a deep, in-depth update on Botham Jean's murder. Outright murder. And so let's go over here real quick. I have an article here that I will pin for the royal family to read, and it says activists demanding justice for Botham Jean won't let leaders off the hook at Dallas panel. Well, what we are going to hear is this lying-ass DA, Faith Johnson. And that's why I titled it the way I titled it, because when you are listening to these politicians, and the majority of them are lawyers, one thing that they teach them is trickeration with words. They're very clever how they use their words. Well, we just as clever, and if you always remain a master student like me and really pay attention and focus on the lies that these people continue to feed us, we start learning some things. So let's get deeper into it.
Fort Worth first moderating a voter turnout panel for the Fort Worth Tarrant County NAACP. And when I left there, I went to Dallas, where there was a community forum at St. Paul United Methodist Church as it related to the Botham Jean case. He, of course, the 26-year-old man from St. Lucia who was gunned down by Officer Amber Geiger in his own apartment. Now, Jean's birthday was on Saturday. That was one of the reasons why they had the Justice for Botham Jean rally taking place at the church there. It got very heated. Now, as I was driving over there, I'm watching, of course, Roland Martin Unfiltered. We actually streamed the entire forum live. Then I hear Attorney Lee Meriden, Ben Crump, saying I was going to be moderating the panel, which I wasn't aware of, but it was okay. Got there in time for the last portion of that. And again, lots of emotion, raw emotion, as people are still angry over the fact that Amber Geiger, it took so long for her to be charged. Now they are demanding DA Faith Johnson to indict her on murder charges.
Yeah, I've got what I think is a quick way. I try to stay pretty well informed on issues, but what I don't understand, what I think a lot of people don't understand, maybe you can explain to us, just in the process of this killing of this brother. Why was there like 3 days or whatever it was before she was arrested? Why was she able to turn herself in another county that she lives in and then the crime was committed in? And just something very, very basic. Assume everything was reversed. Assume Botham Jean went into an apartment, shot this woman dead, and then said, I was in the wrong place, I thought it was mine. Does anybody believe we'd be here with this same thing would have happened? And if that didn't happen, then how is that equal justice?
Okay.
Go ahead. Go 1 second. 1 second. Go ahead.
On August 10th, 2016, the Next Generation Action Network sent the proposal to City Council in the city of Dallas, and we had a list of demands that went about, and we asked Chief David Brown at the time to end the 72-hour policy. We found out.
Okay, first of all, for folks who don't know, I got it. Explain the 72-hour policy.
Okay, so the 72-hour policy allows the officer to wait. So basically in Amber Geiger's case or whatever, they said that this was an officer-involved shooting. There's a policy that makes her and force them to have to send her home, and they can't speak to her or anything until 72 hours is up. Now, guess what? We know in this process that Dallas Police Association and other associations has to represent her, make sure that her rights is there, and she has also the right to look at whatever she wants to. However, this policy was yet supposed to be ended, and David Johnson actually published this throughout the community and said that this was ended Well, this past Monday, we found out that he lied to the community. He did not end that policy back in 2016.
Now,
And Chief Hall,
one second. Is it a policy of the police department?
it was a policy of the police department.
Or can the city council, because the city council governs the police department.
Yeah, that's what
Can
I
the
was
city
gonna say.
council make it clear that will be the policy of the Dallas Police Department, not the chief?
Correct, and that's what I was going to segue into, right? So this is a policy within the Dallas Police Department. But the problem is that no city council stood up and said, why did David Brown lie to us? And that's the reason why the people went down there and shut down the city council chambers, because we have continued to be lied to by the Dallas Police Department and the city council continuously. That's why people like Kiara Saunders is running for city council in Dallas, so that we can have a voice on the city council, so that we don't have people lying to us and being pushed off. We were lied to. That 72-hour policy was supposed to be gone.
But Councilman Fielder, please step up.
Right.
Councilman,
Yes.
the question I asked is, the 72-hour policy, do you believe that should not be department policy of DPD?
That's correct. It should not be.
It should not be.
It should not be.
Are
no.
you, as a council member, are you going to take this proposal to the city council, put it on the agenda to formally have the city council make sure this is not the policy of the city of Dallas?
I don't have a problem with that.
Okay, no. One second. No. One second. Yes or no?
Yes.
Thank you. So.
All right, folks. Again, it was very interesting because what was happening there all throughout. You had State Senator Royce West, who was on the panel. You had a couple of activists. You had a couple of attorneys, but you also had District Attorney Faith Johnson. She is an African-American woman who is the DA up for re-election. She's running on the Republican side against John Creuzot, former judge on the Democratic side. And as we continued the conversation, things got very heated as a group of protesters came down to the front demanding answers specifically of DA Johnson.
I got it. What's your question?
Faith, is it that you can't up the charge to murder, or that you won't? No. It's the law.
Okay. One second. Hold on. She asked the question. DA Johnson, what's the answer?
The answer is the law is you start with the police who charged it. Hold on.
One second.
No.
She's
You
answering
asked
your
me
question.
To answer it, ma'am.
Go
You
ahead.
asked me to
Go
answer
ahead.
it. You asked me to answer, and I'm answering it. And I'm respecting you. The police charged her initially with manslaughter. Now we have the case. It goes to the grand jury. The DA does not charge before it goes to the grand jury. It's already been charged.
You did with Roy Oliver.
I've already said to you all, when this case goes to the grand jury, we are going to educate the grand jury in terms of what are the facts and what's the law. Now it is in the grand jury's hand. The DA does not have the obligation or the responsibility, or do we have the authority at this point to change it? Not at this point, before it goes to the grand jury. We do not have the authority.
Okay, hold on. Let me ask a follow-up question.
Yes.
So since it goes to the grand jury, the police, they've charged her with manslaughter.
That doesn't mean
I got
that's
you.
what's gonna
So
come out of
when
the
it goes to the grand jury,
Yes.
the grand jury can consider the evidence, and the grand jury can
Yes.
issue an indictment that could either be manslaughter or murder.
Yes, and we will be presenting the case, and we will be explaining to the grand jury what the law is. That's all we can do. We
Got it.
cannot change the charge at this point.
The
Got
the pastor of this church, the pastor of this church, I humbly ask you.
What? Just hold up. I'm asking a final question. Just 1 second.
Yes.
When it comes to the grand jury,
Yes.
the district attorney presents it to the grand jury.
Yes.
Has the grand jury been in panel? When do you anticipate presenting this case to the Dallas County grand jury?
We do not have a specific date in terms of when the case is going to the grand
1
jury.
second, bro. I got it. So 1 second, bro. So just when you say you don't have a
Right,
date.
because the grand jury is a secret proceeding. We do not advertise when a case is going to the grand jury. But it's the question is, do we want it right or do we want it quick?
We want it now.
And even if we don't have enough evidence for the grand jury to indict you now?
So 1 second. So what you're saying? So 1 second. So what you're saying is 1 second. 1 second. So what you're saying is, first of all, what you're saying is you're going through a data collection process. Once you completed your investigation, then you will then take the case to the grand jury. So, and are you also saying that if you take it early, you may not have all of your evidence?
There you go.
And that will also determine whether it's manslaughter or murder.
That's exactly right.
All right, folks, we want to now go to our panel. Michael Brown, he is the former vice chair of the DNC Finance Committee. Also, Avis Jones-DeWeaver, leadership strategist, and Eugene Craig. He is the CEO of the Eugene Craig organization. Michael, I want to start with you because what's interesting here is that we have to understand, I believe, the particulars. And what I was trying to get at there with D.A. Johnson was trying to have her walk through for people the facts in terms of exactly what is required. So, for instance, we know that Amber Geiger shot and killed Botham Jean. We call it murder. Understandable. But it's actually a homicide. Explain to people from a legal standpoint why the distinction between murder or manslaughter.
Well, first, Roland, thank you for having me. Let me first touch on my confusion with D.A. Johnson's answer to your question. I'm not familiar with the statutes in Dallas County, but it seems to me the police never should have charged her before talking to the DA's office. I don't understand. Right. There should have been a conference first or a discussion, and frankly, folks that watch Law and Order should see that every day too. Again, I don't know the statutes in Dallas County, but there should have been a conversation between the charging officer, his superior, and the DA's office to see what would actually be the charge. Relative to the difference between manslaughter and murder, it has a lot to do with different elements. Elements from intent to predisposition, their mental capacity, whether it's self-defense, for example. Clearly that was not the case. So I don't know why D.A. Johnson didn't at least say, I understand the rules and what the grand jury has to hear, and she's going to follow the law. But to answer your question, she could have said, this is a murder charge, and I'm going to fight for that. That's all she had to say. Clearly, the rules relative to grand jury are going to present themselves the way they are, but she should have made it clear that she thought this was a murder charge.
And Avis, one of the reasons I was trying to walk through that, because again, well, the general public, folks say that was murder, but the reality is you have to establish intent before you can proceed to murder. The first thing I brought up on Saturday was the case of Dante Servin, the off-duty Chicago police officer who shot and killed Rakia Boyd. They went to trial. The judge determined that he was charged with the wrong charge by Anita Alvarez, Cook County State's Attorney Office, and he was set free. Never tried again. One of the points that D.A. Johnson made is that you want to get the indictment right. You don't want to overcharge, undercharge. Many believe that Angela Correa, who prosecuted the George Zimmerman case, many believe that she made a mistake by prosecuting him for murder because you have to establish intent. And so I know folks want justice immediately, but the key is to make sure that Amber Geiger is charged properly.
Absolutely. We need to make sure that we have justice. And as laypersons who aren't familiar with the law, this is not what we do every day, we don't really know the nuances of what really accounts for murder versus manslaughter off the tip of our tongue. But the missing element here is trust. And that's what the problem is here. Because of a history in this country of seeing police officers get away with murder day after day after day after day, there is no trust there. And so I can understand why the community wants answers and is asking all of these questions, and rightfully so, because they do not trust the police, they do not trust the DA, they do not trust that they will have justice for this innocent man murdered in his own home.
Now, what you have had there, Eugene, you've had the officer who killed Jordan Edwards in Balk Springs. He was convicted of murder. the jury, they gave him 15 years. You have another trial that's going on as we speak of a black officer who I believe is in Mesquite, who shot his brother, who survived, who is also on trial. And so you do have cases where this district attorney's office has indeed gone after police officers. I think but the other thing is I learned over the weekend in Dallas, and this is very interesting, is that once an officer is convicted, then the city is indemnified from that. So for instance, in the Jordan Edwards case, I was talking with attorneys there. Because that officer was convicted, the city isn't even bothering talking to his family about a settlement. So in talking with attorneys there, they also say we must be careful not to rush to want somebody tried immediately because that impacts civil cases. And again, all of the in terms of the family's ability to be able to sue the city and the officer. And so you have all of these things that are going on, and I absolutely understand the righteous indignation of people, but I do believe it is important that we make sure that the DA's office is doing the full investigation to ensure that Amber Geiger is charged the right charge or indicted or the proper indictment.
Absolutely. What people have to remember is that the system is set up not to necessarily convict police officers, not even to have local or state governments pay. It's to protect the agents of the state and the state itself, i.e. the state being local government or state government. And I agree 100%. The DA wants to get it right. And I think she probably could have communicated that better. But I also think, we're looking at reforming this process along the way. I think that indemnification probably should be an issue that's discussed in this next 30-odd days leading up to Election Day. Secondly, I think, if I'm one of the protesters, I'm asking that DA, how in the hell did you allow bail when that would not have been the same if it was a reverse role if we're talking equal justice under the law?
Well, that was certainly one of the issues that came up. Not only that, waiting 3 days before she was even arrested, turning herself in Kaufman County and nearby county as well. So many of those questions were raised, and we can certainly expect folks to keep the pressure on the DA's office when it comes to the Botham Jean case. Also, I want to show you this photo real quick. Guys, do you have the photo? I bumped into Botham Jean's girlfriend. And I sent to, if y'all guys have the photo, please pull it up. And it was very interesting because it reminded me of, her name is Cynthia Alexis Johnson. And it reminded me of the Sandra Bland case. So Cynthia walked up to me and she said, Roland, she said, good to meet you. She said, I want you to know that Botham and I watched your show all the time. And she said, we watched it, we would discuss these topics. And one of the things that she told me was that Botham wanted to one day become the prime minister of St. Lucia. And so she was there, of course, showing her support as well. And so it was just one of those things that, again, when Sandra Bland told her mother that one day she would be on my show, and unfortunately she got on, we were dealing with her death, and the same thing with Botham Jean. So we certainly appreciate him and her watching the show as well. But and we will definitely stay on top of this case, folks, giving you all the latest details and keeping the focus where it needs to be. Now let's shift to...
All right, my Rayo family. I appreciate Roland Martin and his panel keeping it core with us and breaking down how the law work. But there's always that but factor. Again, I have to quote my husband. Remember, when it comes to the enemy, no, first let me get this right. When it comes to us, it is the letter of the law, and when it comes to the enemy, it's the spirit. And we can truly see in this particular case, they used the spirit, and also when it comes to the enemy, this is when people don't know how to execute the law properly. This is when convenient amnesia kicks in and folks don't have a clue. And one thing that I'm real fucking tired of hearing is about what, unquote, black folks in power positions claim they don't have the power to do. They full of shit. Oh yeah, they full of shit. They real full of shit. We heard what the police chief claimed what she could and could not do. So I have one more bonus video for the royal family in this article, because I want to make sure that we focus on the lion ass DA. And remember, let's not lose sight of they are in the middle of an election season, and she is trying to maintain and hold her position. And she lying. Because when they want to get a motherfucker, well, they can get a motherfucker. But there is an issue when it's first and foremost police, because they're upstanding citizens. And then we dealing with this other dual thing, is that this is Becky. Oh, sweet Becky. Would she harm anybody? So they allow, along with the media, because the media plays along with this, the Texas Ranger to try to smear Botham with the marijuana. This shit ain't working. But to singe it in, because I like driving shit in the wall, let's hear for about a minute or so this lion ass DA.
You're going through a data collection process. Once you completed your investigation, then you will then take the case to the grand jury. So, and are you also saying that if you take it early, you may not have all of your evidence,
there you go.
and that will also determine whether it's manslaughter or murder?
That's exactly right.
Go right ahead.
All right, so I wanted to make sure that we did not lose sight of that. And one more thing. To Botham Jean's girlfriend, Cynthia Johnson, much love to you, my queen. I know that you are right there in the battle, fighting for your departed boyfriend. And it seems that Botham has a very strong support system. And I just wanted to also emphasize my royal family that Botham was dating a sister, and see again how the media was showing us what they wanted to show us, because all we seen him surrounded by was white people. So I'm glad that we got a really good shot of her on Roland Martin's channel and everything. I just wanted to emphasize that. And again, have an article here for y'all to read to keep the royal family abreast on our royals' sons outright slaughtering. It's going to be a long process, my royal family, and anything that I can find in depth. I don't want to give y'all surface. I want to go as far in depth that I can, so we can get a bigger, broader picture on the lies, the trickeration, and all of this stuff that they tell us. So how I look at it is, I listen, but words are so cheap. You know, we have been we're lied to every day, and I am a big defender of the royal family, period. But if anybody's new to the true royal family, we do not bash anybody on this channel, because one thing that I have seen, that it is so easy to bash my kings, and I'm seeing this daily, and I'm very, very sick of it. So I just wanted to put that out there. So anyway, my royal family, render your voice with your beautiful, divine words. And as always, my royal family, I thank you for your love. I thank you for your support. And with that said, Ashe.